Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of Pardon Our Picks, where perfection is a work in progress. I'm your host, Sam, and alongside me, as always, is our esteemed host, Tarik. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty well. Starting to stay warm. How about you guys?
Doing pretty good. Of course, we have with us a very special guest this week, a beard enthusiast and NFL expert. Brady, how you doing tonight?
Doing great, guys. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Of course, this video is brought to you by Morningwood Crafter, morningwoodcrafter.com, inspired by design, crafted by hand. Go there for all your wood-crafted needs. So, it was a really exciting Monday night football game last night. The Ravens back and forth, Poopgate. Who knows what happened in reality, but that playoff picture in the AFC has gotten even more exciting, guys. What do you think?
That you are absolutely correct, and so AFC is just we don't know. There's some years. Sorry, my tongue's getting tight here. Some years we know exactly who's going in, and we've talked about it multiple weeks here. It's teams that are showing up that we're not used to seeing at this stage. Browns have not made it this far in years. The Bills, usually we count them out, especially with when Brady was in the Patriots. So we have all these factors, and like we're talking about the Ravens. I think 99% of the people who watch, the 5 people that watch the video are Ravens fans. They have like the easiest schedule at the end of the year. It's almost guaranteed, but we still don't know because the Redskins beat the Steelers, and now it looks like the Steelers have like an Achilles heel. So I don't know fully where this is going to go yet.
I agree with you there, Tarik. There are a lot of AFC teams that are starting to show their wear and tear. Like you said, the Steelers, their Achilles heel being their inability to run the ball. And I think that same problem is going to pop up for the Buffalo Bills as well. Them really ranking in the bottom 5 in the league with rush attempts and rush yards. I think that's going to come back and haunt them as the weather starts to turn. But another one that is surprising people is Miami.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they've had a lot of key injuries these last couple of weeks that I think is going to kind of stop their momentum. But I think in the next year or two, we're going to see a lot of crucial Buffalo versus Miami games to really shake up that division.
I agree. Miami has been coming on. Their defense is incredible, and you're right. The running game for them it's non-existent because their starting running backs now injured. Of course, Buffalo has the 2 running backs in their backfield, and you can't really count on either of them at the moment. So what we have is an exciting AFC East race, and New England's not out of it yet either. So I mean, they're 6-7. They technically still have a chance to win the division. Technically, still have a chance to win the number 7 seed. They don't seem to go away, even though they're 6-7. Baltimore's 8-5. They're tied for that 7th seed with Miami, but Miami has the edge right now, and it could go any number of ways. Baltimore could win out and still miss the playoffs, which is nuts. Cleveland could win their division depending on how Pittsburgh finishes, and I think it's possible that Pittsburgh's downfall right now, it's not as much their running game as Ben Roethlisberger may be hitting that age wall right now where they just stop being good. Brett Favre hit it his last year with the Vikings where he just dropped off, like his arm stopped working. So it's going to be a really exciting race. I can't wait to see how it finishes out. And talking about exciting races, we have here is an exciting race for our picks. Tarik with the big week, 13-3.
I saw that and I'm like, I might have pulled it again, but I can't see your pick, so I didn't know how you did. So I'm like, I had an amazing week.
You should be able to see my picks in the standings at least, or see how I finished. But tied going into week 15, it's anybody's race. Like I said, he was within striking distance, and he caught me. We're going to see how it finishes down the stretch, and we're going to see, of course, how our guest host does this week. So let's start out with Tarik's game of the week.
Okay, so this might be a little bit of a weird one, depending on what part of the season you're looking at. I'm going with Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. It's a division game. We have the Steelers trying to bring back some form of their undefeated season, which is now for naught. They've lost the last two, but I know they're trying to clamber on to keep alive that division title hope. And then you have Cincinnati, who's looked a little better than their record suggests, but that type of game is always like these AFC North games are always like punch in the face. They're always kind of rough. And one of my favorite football movies, Any Given Sunday. Like, we've seen weird things this season with Washington. I've already mentioned Washington beating, handing the first loss to Pittsburgh. So I think this is going to be maybe not the best game, but I think it's one of the games that I'm looking at should be good. It's the Monday night game, and I have Pittsburgh managing to clamor their way back with the victory.
What do you see in this game, Brady?
I think this has to be a statement game for Pittsburgh. The records, as Tarik said, they don't indicate how hard and how close a lot of Cincinnati's games have been played, even though Joe Burrow has been gone the last couple of weeks. So if the Steelers come out and they barely win this game, they are going to be the easiest team that's going to be bounced from the playoffs. So if the Steelers really want to shut the haters up about their record and them being soft, they're going to do everything they can to run up the score against Cincinnati. But I think Cincinnati is going to be game for this. I think I'm going to go with Cincinnati on this one, and a close one.
Cincinnati with their backup quarterback in, and they didn't look great last week against Dallas. Dallas kind of ran roughshod over them. But Pittsburgh, they look old. The running back's coming back this week. He's still he needs time to get up to speed if he's going to be any good this year. Pittsburgh, you're right. They do need that statement game, and they should beat this team by a lot. I don't see them beating this team by a lot. I see them winning to keep their number one seed hopes alive, but it's going to be closer than a lot of people think. I have Pittsburgh in this game. And in the next game, we have Brady's game of the week.
So in my game of the week, I have two teams who are vying for a playoff hope, some of them for their division. I have chosen the Seattle Seahawks versus the Washington football team. And this game has a lot of playoff implications, not just for these teams, but for the teams in their division. As Tarik stated earlier, the Washington football team were the ones to hand Pittsburgh their first loss, mainly in part to that amazing defensive front led by Chase Young and Montez Sweat. I think this game is going to be either as low scoring as a 6-3 game, or it could be the same thing as last Monday night's Ravens-Browns game, where it could be 40-38. And my reasoning behind this is I actually brought some stats along. So Seattle's offense is ranked 4th in the league right now, 2nd in offensive scoring. Washington football team's defense is 6th ranked, but they're in top 10 in both the yards allowed and points scored. So this is a really a movable object versus unstoppable force thing here. But I'm picking Washington football team to beat the Seattle Seahawks in this game on the strength of that defensive front with Chase Young, because as we saw 2 weeks ago, Seattle's beatable. They were beat by a much worse New York Giants squad. And Seattle's offensive line is giving up at least 3 sacks a game on average. I expect Montez Sweat and Chase Young to at least both come out of this game with a sack, possibly a touchdown.
He hit us with the stats.
I know, we don't look so professional anymore.
Hey, you called an expert in for a reason.
Sam kind of throws that word around like free cheese. I mean, it's agreed. I don't know what else I can follow that up with. So I'm with you. I was looking through this, and Sam asked for game of the week. I'm looking for that. I'm going through the teams, trying to find who's got that exact situation that you just brought up. This is the best matchup with that implication in there. And I actually have Washington beating Seattle. They're kind of on a little bit of a streak right now. They're finding their groove at this end, which is where you want to find the groove. You don't want to do it at the beginning like Pittsburgh and then fizzle out at the end. We've seen a lot of teams start really strong and then just as they get into the playoffs and the implications and everything just fade out, and then they're either miss them or they're out in week one of the playoffs. So I agree with you. This should be a really good one, and I'm going with Washington.
Couple of upset picks. Oh my. So Washington, yeah, they have the great defense, but their offense is now could be lacking a quarterback. Alex Smith with the calf injury might not be playing this week, which means they would have to turn to Dwayne Haskins. I don't know if he can get it done. Their defense absolutely is for real. They're going to be a tough play for Seattle's offense, but Seattle's defense should have their way with Dwayne Haskins. That's why I'm picking the Seahawks in this one. And you're right. It's the Seahawks. They're battling for first place in their division. They're tied for first place in their division. But due to tiebreakers, they're second. Washington currently leading their division by a game because New York lost last week. But given that New York beat Seattle with a backup QB, low-scoring game, that's how you have to do that with the backup QBs. It doesn't matter. I think Washington loses this game, so I got Seattle pulling out the victory. All right, let's move on to our next game. I think it's going to be a pretty exciting game. The 10-3 Buffalo Bills going into Denver and playing the Denver Broncos. Now, we talked about that running game for Buffalo being pretty lackluster, and Denver has been a very stout defense. But I think the running game for Buffalo with Josh Allen's going to be running all over the field on them, I think. They're going to have a tough time keeping him corralled. I think Buffalo comes out of this one. I think Buffalo makes a statement win here against that tough defense.
All right, so, yeah, I was looking at this, and I didn't pick my Broncos. I picked Buffalo. I don't think it's quite going to be a statement. I think it's going to be who can just kind of like the Ravens and the Browns on Monday, not quite as high scoring, but it's going to be kind of like who can just kind of keep a little bit more points on the board. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, just kind of going to be a bunch of 3-and-outs back and forth. The Denver's defense is one thing that has held them, and now they're starting to hit a groove. A little too late. I get it, but they're starting to find their groove. They're starting to be able to move a little bit. They're finally getting comfortable with everything. So I don't think it's kind of going to be a blowout, not quite a statement, but I think Buffalo's got a little bit more to fight for. Denver's just kind of fighting for pride. Buffalo's fighting for playoffs in the spots and everything else. So I think Buffalo's going to win.
I agree. I have Buffalo in this game. I think what really hindered the Broncos' season chances, they had a lot of injuries with their offensive weapons early on. And I had them at the beginning of the season making the playoffs because we've even seen in recent weeks they're out their top two wide receivers, but their number 3 and number 4 are performing against these top cornerbacks in the league. And even with Drew Lock not being that high of a draft pick, he's proven that John Elway may have found the quarterback answer in Denver. But I think the offensive weapons of Buffalo with Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley, who I expect to have a massive game in this game, I think it's going to be a little bit too much for that defense to overcome, and I think Buffalo is going to run away with this one.
Speaking of answers, we're going to get the answer to this game. Who is better against KC against the New Orleans Saints? Now, I don't believe that Drew Brees will be back this week. He'll be off IR, but they said he has a ways to go before he's 100%. So,
from a punctured lung, that's nothing.
Tony Romo played with a punctured lung.
I mean, the Lions center played with a fractured throat.
Yeah. Meanwhile, my 4-year-old hit me in the lung the other day, and I went down like a sack of potatoes. Like, all right, I'm not Drew Brees.
Yeah, like a potatoes. But in this game, Taysom Hill with the loss last week, KC coming in here red hot, hanging on to that number 1 spot. New Orleans needs to win this game in order to keep their hopes alive for that number 1 spot. Currently, Green Bay holds that because they lost last week. I have Kansas City going in here going into New Orleans and winning this game. There's going to be points all over the field in this game, though.
I
Yeah,
agree.
absolutely. Oh, go ahead, Brady. You go ahead.
I agree. I think this game's going to start out close, but if Kansas City gets up by a few scores, I expect Sean Payton to pull the plug on a lot of his starters as they're already locked for the playoffs. And with Drew Brees coming back, he's not going to want to chance any more serious injuries to Alvin Kamara or Michael Thomas. So we may see a backup squad game to see what they can kind of do. Because I think we're all going to pick that Kansas City is going to win this game. I don't think if the Saints go down by a lot that they're going to continue to fight. I think they'll give up and make sure that their starters can walk away from this game.
Agreed. So, yeah, I mean, that makes the most sense out of anything. I mean, Brady pretty much covered it all there. So I think this game is a lot of just pride. We don't know if Brees is coming back. It's pretty much a lock. The Kansas City Chiefs pretty much have the playoffs. I don't know if they're locked in, but we know the Saints are. There's no one else in the division that can really catch up. The Chargers aren't doing well. The Raiders I think they might just make a wild card if they're up there. I don't think they're that high.
They're one game out.
Huh?
They're one game out.
Yeah, so they're in the hunt along with the Ravens and trying to get that wild card spot. So they both pretty much have the playoffs on lock. This is just a for-fun game, a for-pride game. I think we're going to see some crazy stuff that just practicing for the playoffs to see what they can do. So maybe a couple strats for some teams they're looking at down the road. But, yeah, definitely Kansas City in this one.
This might be a Super Bowl preview, but we'll have to see what happens. It's tough to make it to the playoffs, especially if people are constantly getting injured, such as your quarterback. But let's move on to the next game. These aforementioned 6-7 New England Patriots, who we mentioned earlier, going against those 8-5 Dolphins, clinging to that 7th seed right now. They're going into Miami right now, and I think Miami has Cam Newton. I think he's done in New England. He just doesn't have it anymore.
He started off really well.
He did. They figured out how to stop him from running. And it turns out he can't pass to anybody because they didn't have anybody to pass to. So I think Miami, with that defense, should hold them in check. And the offense, without a running game, will find just enough offense to win this game. So I have Miami clinging still to that 7th seed.
Yeah, I fully agree. I was just looking at my pick. I have Miami going in this one, which is, again, one of these strange things that we haven't seen in previous years. I think some of this is their coaching staff that they brought down from New England. They know how to play New England because a couple of their coaches are from there. They know what to do. They know what their strats are. It makes this a very interesting game. And then you have New England kind of, as you said, circling the drain. Cam Newton not looking as good as he used to. And they haven't quite – Bill Belichick is either losing it, this perfect puzzle piece that he's put together for the last couple of decades, or he just hasn't gotten the pieces in yet because he wasn't expecting Brady to leave. So we'll see, but I got Miami coming out with this one.
I am going to pick the Patriots in this one, and I'll tell you why. A couple weeks ago, the Patriots played the Chargers, who have a very high-powered offense, and they blanked them on defense. As I said before, Miami, they just lost Mike Gesicki, most likely for this week with a shoulder injury. As Sam mentioned earlier, Myles Gaskin is out. So they're going to be out a couple of key pieces on offense, Miami is. And even though Tua is putting up pretty good numbers in these last few weeks, I still think even though New England's history of playing bad in Miami, I think New England's defense is going to lead them to victory here. I expect Cam Newton to, put up a few stats, but I think the defense is really going to be the star here.
Okay, all right. So let's move on to the Sunday night football game. The Cleveland Browns going into New York. They're both cold weather teams. Playing the Giants. Cleveland on that run, but they have a great running game. They get the two-headed monster with Hunt and Chubb. Giants with that really good defense, and Daniel Jones at quarterback he's always a liability. At this point, I think Cleveland's going to run all over them. Quite frankly, they're going to run. They're going to tell New York, "I'm running. Try and stop me." They're going to run all over them. Cleveland up big in this game. So
I have a kid to take care of. Go ahead, Brady.
Okay. I agree with Sam. I think Cleveland's going to win this game. I think they're going to come out of Monday's loss very energized to kind of show the league what they can do again on a primetime stage. There are rumors that Daniel Jones may not play in this game, and we may see Colt McCoy at quarterback. But again, the Giants are so injury-plagued as they've lost one of the best running backs in Saquon Barkley for the year, obviously early in the season. So I don't think New York is going to have enough to run up the score enough to keep up with Cleveland. I expect Cleveland by the fourth quarter to be sitting Baker Mayfield. I see Cleveland by 30 in this one.
Yeah, definitely Cleveland, I think, taking it with this one. I don't think it's much of a contest, even with New York starting to come out of the woodwork a little bit. They were just another stat in how bad the NFC East was this year. I don't think – is anybody over 500 yet?
No, but the Washington team is at 6-7.
Okay. So they're close, but still we're at week 15, 16, week 15, yeah. And no one's over 500. Some people argue with me. I think it would be really interesting if we started a playoff system where if you don't make 500, you don't make the playoffs. But and in either case, we got this. I think Cleveland's got a little bit to prove after losing to Baltimore on Monday, and then we got New York. Just I think playing for pride. I think it's going to be we're at that time of year. I think Brady hit the nail on the head. They're going to try for like a quarter, maybe a half, and I don't expect to see a bunch of the starters after halftime in Cleveland from Cleveland on Sunday. So, but yeah, I got Cleveland going with this.
Right. Brady hit the Gronk in the end zone. All right, let's move on to our quick hitters. Let's start with the Los Angeles Chargers going into the Las Vegas Raiders. I have the Raiders in this one, but it's actually going to be pretty close.
I have the Raiders in this one as well because the Chargers can't seem to get out of their own way and keep finding new ways to lose football games.
Yep, Vegas.
All right, let's move on to one of the Saturday games. It's the Carolina Panthers going into Green Bay, cold Green Bay. I think Panthers are going to go out of there as icicles.
Yeah, pretty much. Again, it's one of those matchups that aren't really working. It's just on the schedule, so Green Bay.
No Christian McCaffrey, no victory, Green Bay.
Absolutely. By the way, the other Saturday game is the Buffalo Bills at the Broncos. This is the late game for that one. All right, let's move on to the San Francisco 49ers, fresh off their loss, going against the Cowboys, fresh off their win. And I picked San Francisco to go into Dallas and win this one. They're going to be able to run the ball all over the place.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Brady.
I think Dallas is going to come away with this one. With San Francisco losing Deebo Samuel for the year, I think that's going to prove very costly because Nick Mullins, he hasn't shown that he's good enough to be an NFL quarterback in my mind. I think Dallas does just enough on defense to stop that run game, and Dallas walks away with this one.
I think it's definitely going to be close. I kind of toiled with this one a little bit because while San Francisco started really well, they've had too many injuries. But Dallas hasn't really shown to me. I think they're starting to get some pieces together. They look better than they've looked in a while, but I don't think they quite have enough. I think it's going to be low and kind of a dirty. I'm going San Francisco.
Yeah, I hate to say this, but I hope Dallas loses. I want a better pick next year.
It's like the 2012 Colts where they're like, suck for luck.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to the 1-12 Jaguars going into those victorious Baltimore Ravens, M&T Bank Stadium. I think the Ravens get a win here, but I think both teams actually put up decent points.
I'm going with Baltimore too. I don't think it's much. I think Baltimore's just they're fighting for their lives right now, and I don't think Jacksonville quite has enough to stop them. They've gone through quarterbacks a bunch this year. I'm going with Baltimore.
I agree. I think Baltimore walks away with this, but I think this is going to be a defensive statement game for the Ravens. Baltimore's always been known for their defense, and after letting 42 get put upon last week, I expect a 0 to be up there for Jacksonville when the time hits 0.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. Predicting the shutout. Let's move on to another game. We have the 8-5 Tampa Bay Tom Brady's going against the 4-9 Falcons in Atlanta. I actually thought Atlanta stood a pretty good chance here, but I got Tampa Bay coming out of this one in a close one.
I agree. I have Tampa Bay on this one. For some reason, given all of the weapons in the world, Matt Ryan can't put it together this year. I think Tampa Bay is easy in this one.
Agreed, Tampa Bay.
I also think he has a problem playing against Brady.
Most people do.
Even Peyton Manning had problems fighting against Brady. So
True. All right, let's move on to the 5-8 Lions going against the Tennessee Titans, clinging to that division lead right now, tied for the division lead, but I think they are currently leading the division. I have Tennessee getting the victory in this one, and it might be Chase Daniels at quarterback for the Lions this week.
I agree. I think Derrick Henry is just going to be a little bit too much for this Detroit defense to stop. And even if they are able to, Tennessee has used so many first-round picks on weapons. It's going to be a blowout early.
yeah, I'm going with Tennessee.
All right, let's go on to the Houston Texans going against the other team tied for first in the AFC South, the Indianapolis Colts. That stifling defense is going to shut down the run game, shut down the pass game, because they don't have Will Fuller anymore for the year, and Brandon Cooks is just coming off an injury. I have Indianapolis holding them to like 10 points.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty big gap. Indy's fighting, as you said, they're fighting for that playoff spot, trying to get as high up as they can. Houston's kind of falling apart, so Indianapolis.
I'm going to go against you guys here and say Houston. Phillip Rivers has always been that will he, won't he kind of quarterback. Indy's defense has been really good, but I think Deshaun Watson is going to pull some Deshaun Watson magic out of his butt, and I think Houston's going to walk away with this one.
Thank goodness he used butt.
I heard family-friendly show and I remembered.
Yes, exactly. Very good. All right, so we have right now, this is the fight for the 7th seed in the NFC. It's the 6-7 Vikings going against the 6-7 Bears, and I got the Vikings with that run game beating that defense. So Vikings.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Brady.
I'm going to say Chicago in this one. In the last 2 weeks, David Montgomery has really shown that he's worth that number 1 running back spot, and Minnesota doesn't have enough on defense to stop that. This game's going to come down to time of possession, but I think Chicago is going to come away with this one.
All right, I'm going with Minnesota. I think it's one of these quintessential things. It's you got a pretty good offense against a pretty good defense. Chicago's defense has proven, even when it's good, that it can be beat. And I mean, they took it to the Super Bowl and didn't help them however many years ago. I'm going with Minnesota.
I think that was 2004, 2008, something like that.
6. That's when the Colts beat them. So I think that was 2006.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the flightless Jets flying in, probably hobbling in to Los Angeles to play the Rams. It's not a contest. Go Rams.
Rams. Is there anything needs to be said here?
Rams. I mean, the only thing that could be said is how many points are the Rams actually going to put up?
Oh, good God. I'm going to say, going on a limb, say 38.
All right. I'm not going to go quite as high. I'll go with 32.
I'm going to say 30 because this is going to be another one where all the starters are going to be sat because New York is doing everything they can to make sure they have that number 1 pick.
This is not the Price is Right. It is not the closest without going over. So
you get it wrong, you get it wrong.
That's right. All right, let's move on to the final game of the week. We have the Philadelphia Eagles going up against the 7-6 Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals really need this victory, but Jalen Hurts gave the Eagles a spark of life last week. It's going to be close, but Arizona needs this victory. I got Arizona.
I think Philly is going to come away with this one. The last couple of weeks, Kyler Murray's star has really fallen, even though he has the number one receiver in the league, in my mind, in DeAndre Hopkins. Last week, Philly revitalized that run game using both Miles Sanders and Boston Scott well. So I think Philly is going to win a tough-nosed game and really show that Arizona is not for real this year.
I think Arizona just needs it that bad. Philly's been hit or miss with certain things, so I'm going to go with Arizona.
That's it.
That's it. All right, guys. So thank you again for watching. Thank you very much to Brady for joining us. It was
Thank
a
you,
pleasure.
guys.
Completely showed me and Sam up. So with stats and professionalism. All right. There's my daughter. Say hi. So thank you for watching. If you liked us, leave a like, comment us, tell us we're wrong, tell us we're stupid, tell us we're geniuses. And make sure you subscribe, let you know when we watch it, because we've had some random schedule mess ups here. So subscribe, hit that bell, let us know. And as always, I'm Tarik.
I'm Sam.
And I'm Brady.
And you guys have a wonderful football week.